Now let's look at the trainees. Li Yuancao, as we know, that he spent some time at Harvard, and not long-term, short-term program, and that's very important for his career. Wang Funing spent 2 years as a visiting scholar at several important several schools like Iowa, Michigan, and Berkeley. And there are also some real returnees, and including 2 of them are actually non-CCP members. They are the ministers. There are only 2 non-CCP members. Nan Gang studied overseas for about 10 years, including served as a senior manager of Audi. Now he is the Minister of Science and Technology. The other is the Minister of Health, and Chen Zhu, also very established scholar in the field of medicine. Now, this is also there's a rise of entrepreneurs, although the number is still quite small, but increased. Usually they're quite young, including the CEO of First Auto. Now he moved to become the vice governor of Jilin. He has a famous line when he served as the CEO of First Auto, which goes, "Let every Chinese family own a car." I don't know whether it's making it popular or not. And the CEO of Sinopec, 45 years old. And the CEO of Shanghai Bao Steel, 49 years old. 49 years old CEO of China Telecom, and 48 years old of China Aluminum Corp. And finally, Chen Xuanping now became the vice governor of Shanxi. I'm sorry. Now, most of the young leaders actually come from entrepreneurial background. This probably tells us the next battle, the game in 10 years or beyond will be a little bit different. The career path probably will drastically change. Now, let me go to the third point, is what I call strong factions, weak leaders. Now, I talk about as weak leaders, not necessarily these people are incompetent, but they are largely because in terms of public opinion and the institutional restraints upon these fifth generation rising stars. Each of them has some kind of limitations, restraints, and etc. I can answer that during the Q&A period. Now, also it's interesting to see that the previous 3 generations, from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th generation, Zhang Zhenming from Shanghai Elitist Coalition, then moved to Hu Jintao from Populist Coalition, then now highly likely we're going to Xi Jinping. So this is the pattern. They reach out. You can see that they have no choice. They have to compromise. But also you can see they deliberately want to reach out. This is the Chinese version of team of rivals. Reach out for the different faction and therefore to expand their own power and sharing power. Now finally, the political pluralism and the policy deadlock. Again, let me summarize the leadership diversity. Diversity occurs in their class background, in terms of educational credentials, in terms of political affiliations, in terms of career path, in terms of their world views. And also, this may lead to some policy deadlock in the years to come, or maybe already happening. Now, because this will cause this kind of diversity, one party, 2 factions, will cause the decision-making process to be lengthier and more complicated. And it will make the political system less capable in dealing with crisis and urgent crisis. And also may lead some politicians to reach out to the general public for support. So nationalist sentiment, those nationalist policies usually will take up hand. Now let me very quickly talk about the policy differences of the 2 coalitions. For populist coalition, they are more concerned about social cohesion, particularly Hu Jintao's harmonious society. They focus on the more balanced regional development, change from Zhang Zhenming's coastal development strategy, and the employs a people-centered approach, the populist Qingming, and the people-centered rhetoric, and also advocates using green GDP, although it's never effective, and also pay great attention to the so-called vulnerable social group, peasants, migrants, and the urban poor. In contrast, elitist coalition interested in the economic efficiency, favor a coastal development strategy, and less concern about the environment, and emphasis on rapid GDP growth, and finally represent the interests of entrepreneurs and emerging middle class. Now let's very quickly look at these 2 rising stars, their hot button issues. For Li Keqiang, increased employment is crucial, as well as offer affordable housing, not so much about real estate development, provide the basic health care, and he also has a catchline called small government, big ministries. What's that? And the new clean energy, and also talk about establish the Northeast Asia Free Trade Zone. Now for Xi Jinping, again, promote private sector. He worked in Fujian, Zhejiang, and Shanghai, all famous for the market-friendly policies, and support market liberalization, including financial sector, and continue high-rate GDP growth. And so he has a catchline called service government, big companies. It's better in my view. And expand China's integration into the world economy. And finally, Shanghai's reclaim as the head of dragon. In my assessment, the next 2 or 3 years, probably Shanghai will return to the center of China's economic development. Now, in terms of their political orientation, this is I did a study, look at their reaction to issues like rule of law, election, and the civil society, and etc. This is the economic globalization. The other is political democracy. This is where they're located. Now, I don't want to elaborate because of the time concern. See the differences, the time pipe and the principles. Now, uncertainties of upcoming succession. In my view, the next succession will be more problematic than the last succession. In my view, the Hu Jintao, Wen Jiabao, it's almost a done deal when they put it in the position as vice premier and the vice president. But now it's less clear. Now, as we know that Xi Jinping succeeded Zheng Qinghong 2 years ago as vice president. But we know that he's no Zheng Qinghong. Zheng Qinghong is a famous, deal cutter. So it's a big question mark about Xi Jinping's capacity. Now, Li Keqiang has a PhD, but no one in economics, but no one in China really consider he is an economist. Just very much like George W. Bush has an MBA. now this is a photo. When I saw it on internet, I was shocked. Why shocked? Only one person could take that picture. It was Mao, but Wang Yang was bold enough to take that picture, surrounded by people, his fans. Now, finally, this Bo Xilai, along with his son, who went to Eton College and then Oxford, now made to become Mr. Trendy, right? Mr. Fashion. And I was in China in the airport. You can see the picture about Mr. Trendy and talk about the 3 generations of revolutionary family. Now, this has also made a lot of people unhappy, very angry. Now, conclusion. What does this analysis mean to the West? I don't have time to elaborate, but my bottom line is we should have our friends at both camps. Don't put everything on one camp. That's problematic. We should develop the program which is attractive to both camps. Now, what can we expect in the future? I want to end up with an anecdote. Now, actually, this anecdote was first told by Song Defu, Hu Jintao's close friend. He actually served as the party secretary of Fujian and died because of liver cancer a few years ago. But he told that story, and of course on different situation. Now I modify that story. Here is the anecdote. 2 men, we call them Mr. Xi and Mr. Li, are traveling together in a dense forest. When they stop to set up camp, they suddenly see a tiger racing towards them. Mr. Xi takes the time to put on his running shoes. Mr. Li laughs and asks, what's the use of wearing these running shoes? Can you run faster than the tiger? No, I'm not faster than the tiger, Mr. Xi replied, but I want to run faster than you. Well, at the time of rapid socio-economic changes in the PRC, any political leader or political coalition should learn how to run faster than the other. Thank you very much.